Once again, the ugly specter of anti-Semitism has shown up in America after a man killed 3 people in Jewish facilities in Kansas on the eve of the Jewish Passover.
The suspect in the case is being called a longtime anti-Semite and a white supremacist. George Thomas has the story.
Authorities say the suspect is a 73-year-old man seen in this video captured by a local television crew as he was being handcuffed. His name is Glenn Miller and reportedly has a history of racist and anti-Semitic activity. He was heard shouting Heil Hitler moments after being put in the back of the police car.
Heil Hitler!
The initial call came into our dispatch center at 1:03 p.m.
The chaos began Sunday afternoon in a suburb of Kansas City when Miller opened fire in the parking lot of this Jewish community center.
It was really scary. I mean, people are calling their loved ones, and I called my mom and she started crying, and then I started crying.
2 people were killed at the scene.
Several shots were fired at that location, and witnesses stated that the suspect left the location soon after.
His next target, a Jewish retirement home a couple of blocks down. Police say he was carrying a shotgun and handgun. 1 person was killed at the scene.
Today is a tragic shooting of 3 people that marks a sad day in the city of Overland Park.
Sunday's attack comes as anti-Semitic incidents have actually been on the decline here in the United States, although they've been rising in other parts of the world, especially in Europe. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups, says Miller is a white supremacist and a former Grand Dragon of the KKK. He reportedly posted more than 12,000 times on the Vanguard News Network, whose slogan is "No Jews, just right." The Jewish Passover begins today, and authorities say it is too early to say whether the shootings were hate crimes.
Obviously, at 2 Jewish facilities, one might make that assumption, but we're going to have to know more about it before we'll label it.
President Obama called the shootings heartbreaking as prayer services were held in local churches to mourn the victims. George Thomas, CBN News.
Just never seems to end. In other news, deadly terrorist attack in Nigeria has killed more than 70 people. John Jessup has more on that story from Washington. Here's John.
Pat, an explosion blasted through a busy bus station on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital just before 7 in the morning local time. It came as hundreds of people were traveling to work. The blast destroyed more than 30 vehicles, and that led to secondary explosions as fuel tanks ignited and burned. There was no claim of responsibility, but bus stations have been a favorite target of Islamic terrorists in Nigeria, and they've been threatening to attack the capital in the middle of the country. The Boko Haram Islamic terrorist network has been attacking schools, villages, marketplaces, and military barracks in other parts of the country. The group wants to force an Islamic state on Nigeria. Pat, this also comes on the heels of a deadly attack yesterday. That attack claimed 60 lives.
You know, John, I wonder, and I think, ladies and gentlemen, we all need to wonder, is who are these people that want to kill little babies, want to kill innocent women and children, want to kill shoppers, people sitting in restaurants, just wanton slaughter? What is it in their religion? Don't think that they're poor, oppressed people. Many of them are from the upper classes. But I want to give you something. We'll talk more about it later on today, but I think you need to understand when this stuff's going on, and millions of people have lost their lives because of this fanaticism. We have a booklet called Islam, Religion of Peace or War. We've had about 23,000 requests for this already. It's a gorgeous publication. It's got all kinds of facts, directly quotes from the Quran, from the fundamental documents of the Islamic faith. This isn't an aberration, and these people are not twisting a great religion. They are following the precepts of the founder of that religion. But nevertheless, to kill innocent women and children, don't you get sick of it? We're going to talk later on about the wanton slaughter that took place during the Boston Marathon. Today is the day to celebrate that race. John?
Pat, America's top federal energy regulator says her agency is taking steps to protect the nation's power grid from possible terrorist attacks. Cheryl LaFleur says the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is improving the handling of national security information. The move follows a report that certain officials failed to protect the grid's vulnerabilities. They casually had allowed widespread access to a document discussing specific physical threats to the grid. Last month, the Wall Street Journal reported on a secret federal analysis that said if a coordinated terrorist attack on 9 key substations were successful, it could cause catastrophic power outages across the country. And Pacific Gas and Electric is offering a $250,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction in the attack on one of its substations in California. Last April, snipers shot at the Metcalf substation, then escaped before police arrived. The military-style attack blasted 17 giant transformers, which supply power to parts of Silicon Valley. The people responsible also cut fiber optic lines to knock out the area's phone and 911 service. Well, speaking of finances, tomorrow is the deadline for filing taxes if you didn't already know. And if you're one of the millions still scrambling to file, the IRS may not be the best place to turn for help. But as John Waggy explains, some tax experts are trying to make the process a little less painful.
Most of us are familiar with federal deductions such as moving expenses or charitable giving, including items like clothes and furniture. But the persistent filer can find some unusual ways to recoup what Uncle Sam has taken away, like deductions for shipping your pet across the country, or hot tubs for those who can get a doctor to sign off on their soaking needs, or the cost of music mouth therapy for someone who's been to the orthodontist.
A bodybuilder wanted to know if he could take posing oil as a legitimate business expense for his business, and in that set of circumstances, that was okay.
For others, relieving the tax burden is more serious. The IRS sends out more than 5 million of the dreaded 1099-C forms every year. The form is to declare the tax on forgiveness of debt. That means millions are paying taxes on income that doesn't exist. But on a recent 700 Club, Dan Pilla, author of the book How to Eliminate Taxes on Debt Forgiveness, said little-known rules allow for a way out.
The rule is if you are insolvent as of the day the debt is forgiven, then that cancellation of debt is not taxable income.
But Pilla says your creditors and the IRS won't tell you that, so you have to present your case to the government.
There's a tax form that people don't know about that you can put with your tax return. So if you get one of these 1099-Cs, as millions of people will do here, already have here for this filing season, there's a form you can put with your tax return that expresses what these exceptions are so that you don't get taxed on it.
As the tax code becomes increasingly complex and oppressive for those who pay taxes, it's more important than ever to have help in navigating the bureaucracy. John Waggy, CBN News.
Well, even though the tax code is extremely complicated, most Americans think filing taxes is easy, according to an Associated Press poll. 58% say filing returns is simple. 38% disagree. They think it's hard. And 86% of those surveyed who had already finished say they're confident they file their taxes correctly. Also, 90% of those, 90% rather, oppose making the tax code simpler if it means paying higher taxes. And Pat, conversely, only 7% say they're willing to pay more in taxes for a simpler code.
About 50% don't do anything. 50% don't even owe any taxes. So of course they don't think the code is complex because they don't owe anything. So it's the people who actually earn some money and have to go through these torturous machinations to figure the alternate minimum tax, et cetera, et cetera. That's what's complex. And all the deductions and the set-offs and the set-asides, it is a procedural nightmare, regardless of what. But of course, the majority of the people who don't pay taxes, why should they care? So, you know, if it's going to change the code, you won't stoke the rich quite as much. That's not good. We want to get more money out of them if we can, so they'll pay the bills for us. That's not a good situation we're in, but that's the way it is. You know, Wendy, I trained in tax law in the law school. I mean, that was my specialty. And I used to do my own taxes, and I was proud that I could do it. I did all those various calculations. And then after a while, the IRS themselves, the people didn't like the way I was doing it. I didn't type stuff in my own handwriting. And it got so complicated. There's so many things that, you know, you turn it over to, in my case, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and just say, hey, take it. I don't, you know, I'm not going to fool with it. I don't have a clue anymore. I really don't have a clue. I used to know. I don't have a clue. So they tell me, well, write a check for so much money, or you're going to get a refund for so much money. Well, that's nice. And I don't have any idea, because
refund is always better. Refund is always better than pay.
That is so brilliant. Thank you.
The Christian film God's Not Dead is still doing extremely well at the box office. The movie finished in the top 10 again over the weekend, coming in at number 7 with an estimated $5.5 million. So far, the film has made more than $40 million after being in theaters for 4 weeks. CBN's program 180 Degrees has won the Teletriumph Award in television production for the 2nd year in a row. Teletriumph is Ukraine's national award for television and radio broadcasting. The award celebrates significant achievements in the industry, encourages development of TV production, and recognizes high broadcast standards. The 180 Degrees winning episode, called Syndrome of Kindness, features a positive message about a Ukrainian Dutch family raising a child with Down syndrome. One of the show's producers said, by producing our programs, we aim to inspire positive changes in people's lives because of God. Well, you can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international.